All right, well, we will get started. Welcome to our MREA book club. We are in week 3. So far in week 1, we did the mindset of a millionaire real estate agent. And then in week 2, we went and looked at the economic model. So for those of you who are here and plugging along, if you haven't done the economic model, Jane had posted a spreadsheet last week, and if you need us to resend that, please just let us know. But basically, that takes it very granularly into, okay, this is what I want to earn in the next 12 months, and then breaking it down based on how many buyer appointments, seller appointments, how many real estate conversations you need to have each day in order to hit your goals. So if you haven't done the economic model yet, or the economic worksheet, please let me know, because that's something that's very important in order to then get to the next step, which is what we're going to talk about today, which is the lead generation model. So for those who've been following along, we're right now on page 133. Jane should be joining me in a little bit. She is leading a sales rally up in Sparta, so it may just be me solo today. And then Christina, who's also right there next to me, so she'll be able to help me with some of the command stuff once we get to command. But so one of the things I want to start with on page 133 is the importance of the lead generation model. And ultimately, what today's topic is discussing is ultimately, how do you earn the mind share of the consumers around you to build your business? Because at the end of the day, if people don't know you're in real estate, they're not going to choose you as a real estate agent. So it's making sure that everyone in your sphere, everyone in your orbit, when you're doing open houses, that you're door knocking, you're circle prospecting. And there's a lot of different things that we're going to talk about today. But the first part of this chapter on page 133 is all about earning mind share. And so one of the things, and I know Bill has talked about this in some of his other classes, but it is still worth noting that ultimately the human mind only has a finite, it can only hold a finite amount of information at one given time. So most brands, most people can only register 2, maybe 3 brands on a specific topic or a specific product. So for example, if I were to ask, I'll ask you, Christina, since you're right next to me, if you were to think of a soda brand, what would you think of?
Probably like Coca-Cola or something along that line. Like
what would be your second?
Diet Coke's the same thing. Like either Pepsi or ginger ale, something like that.
Okay, and if you were to think of a brand of toothpaste, what would you think of?
Colgate, Crest. That's
no, and so that just illustrates my point in that most people only have the capacity to be able to think of 1 or 2 things on a specific topic, specific product. So that's the same with real estate. You want to become, for people in your area, for people in your friend group, people in your phone book, or your contact list, you want to make sure that every time someone says, well, who do you know that's a realtor? It's just like Coke or Pepsi. You want to say it's, Mike McNamara, Raphael, that's where you want to get Christina De La Motte. Like, you want to make sure that you are the person that they think of when they think of real estate. And ultimately, this ties back into the economic model, in that once you know how many appointments you need to go on each week, you're basically, how many real estate conversations you need to have each day to convert them into appointments. So ultimately, one of the things that I've taken many classes on this topic, and one of the things that always stood out to me was one of the instructors that I heard talk. They said, earn mind share now and market share later. So right now you're focusing on just blasting your name and getting in front of as many people as possible to earn their mind share. Once you earn their mind share, you will then get the market share, you'll get the appointments, you'll get the listings, you'll work with the buyers. So right now it's just saturating and getting from as many people as possible and having as many real estate conversations as possible. Because one of the things that NAR has researched, they have found that 76% of all sellers contact only 1 agent, and 16% contacted just 2. When we look at the buyers, 59% of all buyers interviewed only 1 agent, and 22% met with just 2. So I mention that because it's all about getting your foot in the door. If you are, and that's why you're having real estate conversations. If you can get in front of a seller, 76% of the time, they're only going to interview one person. So if you can be that one person, you are going to convert that into a listing. So, just keep that in mind and just getting yourself in front of as many people as possible. And that goes on to page 135. We're looking at playing the numbers game. So it says here, many real estate agents focus most of their lead generation efforts on getting quality leads. But the truth is that can be misleading. The real issue is conversion rates. So what you want to do is you want to get in front of as many people as possible, because it's your net results, the number that you convert, that ultimately are what translate into closed production and closed sales. So, the lower your conversion rates, the more appointments you'll need to go on, the more people you'll need to get in front of. So when we talk about conversion rates, a lot of that comes back to, are you confident with the scripts and dialogues that you're communicating, that you're speaking to when you're talking to a consumer, when you're talking to a client, when you're having these real estate conversations? Do you feel natural? Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel confident in what you're delivering? And if you're not, that's totally fine. Eric and Joe down in the coaching program are two of the best at really scripts and dialogues and conversations. So definitely feel free to plug into some of their classes, because that's where you're really going to be able to hone in on how to communicate with your buyers and with your sellers. The other thing that Gary writes in The Millionaire Real Estate Agent that always resonated with me is he says the quality is in the quantity. So what that means is, very simply, you want to get in front of as many people as possible. Not all of them will be quality leads. So you need to develop follow-up programs, and Christina is going to show us in a little bit how you can do that in Command. You want to, just get in front of as many people as possible and have as many real estate conversations as possible. And it's funny, just to give you an example of, there's an agent that I used to work with in Morristown. Her name was Denise, and then someone else started doing it, Michael Parker. I don't know if you.
Oh, yeah.
So what they would do is actually they would sometimes put on their name badge and they would have it upside down. And by doing that, people would walk up and say, "Hey, did you know that your name badge is upside down?" And you'd be like, "Oh no," and then turn it right side up, and it'd be like, "Oh, you're in real estate." So it was a conversation starter for some of those people. Sometimes doing something just as silly as that, it strikes up a conversation in sometimes the most random of places, and you just have to be open and be approachable to all of these conversations, because at the end of the day, as Gary writes at the bottom, page 135, there's a much stronger correlation between sales lead generated and the consistency and frequency of your message than between sales and the creativity of the message. So this goes back to week 1. You want to have a solid foundation and you want to follow the models before you start being creative. So you want to make sure that you're creating and following those systems, because systematic systems and being consistent is really what's going to drive you to success. So just keep that in mind. Whatever you're doing, just create a plan. And, as we'll see in Command in a little bit, a lot of the stuff can be automated and it can just be done, repetitiously, one after the other. So, go on the offensive, build a lead generation strategy, build a plan that resonates with you. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the different ways, and actually we're now at that point at page 136. There's 3 key areas of your lead generation model. And so the first one is prospecting and marketing. The second one is setting up your database and feeding it consistently, or feeding it constantly. And the third one, which is systematically marketing to that database. So those are the 3 key areas of the lead generation model. And we're going to dive into each one momentarily. The one thing I will stress is, and I was at an event in Kinnelon 2 nights ago with some of the top agents in North Jersey. And one of the things that really resonated with me is that everyone is different and everyone will succeed using different methods of lead generation. For some people, it could be cold calling. For some people, it could be social media. For some people, it could be door knocking. For some people, it could be circle prospecting. There's a lot of different ways to be successful. One person is purely referral based and getting referrals. So there's no one right way of being successful. but it's identifying and trying out and dabbling in a couple different areas to see what really works well and what resonates most with you. So when we go back to the three key areas of lead generation, we'll start with prospecting and marketing. So as Gary writes, the goal of your Achieve Big lead generation program, and that goes back to the economic model, to know what your big goal is to generate leads and to build stronger relationships for future business. So you'll hear this a lot when Bill speaks, when I teach classes, Eric. Real estate is a relationship business. And if you're not attempting to build relationships, you're not going to succeed at a really high level in the industry. And for some people, they do, in the sense that I know some people who are really good and they love cold calling and they generate leads and they close transactions, but then their follow-up systems are a mess and they don't follow up with people. And so you're just constantly cold calling, cold calling, cold calling. You need to have a balance of doing what you're great at and what you're the best at, and then also having a system in place for the back end, so that way you're not constantly having to find new business all the time. Repeat and referral business is an amazing way to be able to generate stability in your business and to generate consistency. So there's a lot of different ways. I would say the most successful agents, and don't hold me to this, but I would say they're marketing based, prospecting enhanced, because I feel most people, in my experience, are not cold callers. They're not people, or they could be, but they don't like doing it. And yet there is a large subset of people who are really good at that and love doing it. So again, you have to figure out where you find the most success. But what I will say is I find that ones who are marketing based, whether that's, and again, it could be advertising, it could be social media, it could be mailers, it could be promotional items. Page 138, and I'm not going to read through all of these, it gives a lot of examples of what an example of marketing is, versus prospecting. So it could be, from a marketing perspective, it could be sponsoring a little league baseball team. It could be having shirts with our Keller Williams logo on it, and we do have a store that has all of our branded material and stuff like that. From a prospecting side, that's more the telemarketing. That's more your cold calling, your prospecting, you're calling for sale by owners, you're calling past clients, just solds, just listed, all of that type of stuff. And so doing a little bit of both is what's going to set you up for success. But there's three buckets of people that you want to identify as you're making these calls or as you're reaching out to people. The first bucket on page 139, they call it the target group consists of people you haven't met and don't know. But it differs from the general public in that you've targeted them as people with whom you specifically like to do business. So what the target group means is that they're people that you haven't met with, but that you would like to ultimately get into that area. So for example, let's say I grew up in Mount Olive, and in Mount Olive I lived in Clover Hill Drive, which is a small subsection of town, but it was a nice little small community. If I were a full-time agent, I might say, since I grew up there and I was there for almost 20 years, I might do a mailer and saturate that area, even though I don't know everyone there, but saturate that area to hopefully over time, and we'll get into some of the ratios in a little bit of how many mailers you need to put out to return business. And for those of you who've been on Pathway to 7 Million with Jane, she's gone into that a lot over the course of the last few months. But ultimately, the target group is people you don't know, but people you'd like to be in business with and people that you'd like to target. So, like I said, you could be purposeful and say, I'm going to do an open house. For myself, like I said, I'll do an open house in Clover Hill Drive, and I will door knock and circle prospect that area. So again, even though you may not know the people, you're trying to make headway into that area. Number two is the MET group. And these are individuals who you know because you have met them either in person or by phone. So it could be friends, family, ex-coworkers. It could be, if you have children, it could be people that you know from their activities, sports teams, drama club, whatever they do. And one of the things that I will do, and Christina, she does classes on this, on how to add contacts and how to tag them into Command. So I'm not going to really go into that type of detail today. But what I will say is you want to create different groups and subsets of people that you know, because it could be, like I said, it could be people you know from, maybe you are on a soccer team, maybe you are in a bowling league, or maybe but it could be past clients. But just create those groups of people that you know, because again, it comes back to the systematic follow-ups, to where if they're not hearing from you, you're not going to have the mind share. So whether you talk to them, whether you close a transaction with them last month and it went really smooth, 2 years from now, not that they're not going to remember you, but you may not be top of mind. So you want to create those systems, even for the people that you do know well, that they're getting something from you on a regular basis. And we're going to go into what some of those drip campaigns are in just a little bit. And then lastly, Gary writes about allied resources, which comprise a very select subset of your MEC group. These are individuals you expect either to do business with or to receive business leads from every year. So I usually like to call those people VIPs. So people who are sending you referrals, people who are sending you business, you want to reward that referral, because maybe the VIPs in your group, maybe you're, when Thanksgiving rolls around, you're getting them an apple pie, or you're, 4th of July, maybe you're doing a stop by their house and dropping off some item of value. But the people who are actively giving you referrals, you want to reward that behavior by not only thanking them, but really making sure you nurture that relationship, because most likely they're going to send you more. You want your closest VIP group, who are your raving fans, to really be able to, connect with, you'll be able to connect with them and maintain that relationship. So as I write on page, or as Gary writes on page 140, you want to reward the right behavior. So that way you want to reward people for sending you those referrals. So those allied resources, it can also be, like I said, it can be people who are sending you business. It could also be people like vendors. Maybe you know an electrician, maybe you know a plumber, and it's just kind of getting those pools of people, because those, when you think of electricians, when you think of landscapers, all these people are having conversations with homeowners. So they know, like, oh, this person I think is looking to move maybe in the next, few months, or maybe is looking to move soon. So building those relationships will allow you to really, get someone who's on the ground floor to be able to, have that kind of relationship. So, definitely build relationships with vendors. Like I said, landscapers, electricians, chimney sweeps, like all those people, they're in homes all the time. So those are people that you want to have conversations with. When we look at page 142, this is number 2 in the lead gen source, which is set up a database and feed it. If you don't have your contacts in command right now, or if you don't have it in some sort of database, there's a huge lost opportunity, because there's so many things you can do by reaching out to people on a consistent basis that, if you're not doing it, I urge you to do that now. If you're new to the business, if this is, if you're brand new, one of the first things that I always tell people to do is take out a sheet of paper, write down the first 50 to 100 people that you think of, and make sure that you call them and make sure that they know you're in real estate. Because again, when we're tying it back to earning mind share, if the people closest to you don't know you're in real estate, it's going to be really hard to grow out that that network of people. Because most likely your first transaction will come from someone who knows you, likes you, and trusts you. So make sure that you are setting up and putting people into your database. And in just a little bit, we're going to show you how to do that in command. But ultimately, and I have this highlighted and I've asterisked it, so it must be super important here on page 142. But ultimately, and I can't stress this enough, your database is your business. Building up the number of names in it and a relationship with those names is really at the very core of what building a real estate business is all about. The size of your real estate sales business will be in direct proportion to the size and quality of your database. So I want to say that one more time, because this is probably the most important thing today. The size of your real estate business will be in direct proportion to the size and quality of your database. So if you only have 5 or 6 names in it, then you're going to have a really small database, and that's going to be, that's who your pool of people. But if you're adding 5 people a day, you're adding, then 30 people a week, 120 people a month, then next thing you know, whether they're people you have met, haven't met, whether they're allied resources, is just having those real estate conversations. Your real estate business has the opportunity to blossom and the opportunity to really grow. So just keep that in mind, that your database is your business. And I will also tell you, one of the things that Bill always talks about, and we've attended a lot of trainings with a top KW trainer, Gene Rivers, and when we're talking about your database as your business, your database is also worth money. So down the road, if you want to retire, so let's say you're ready to get out of real estate, but you've amassed a solid business, you have 5,000 people in your database, you can sell that database to someone and actually get money from it. It's just like when a dentist retires or a doctor retires, they will hand off that database and sell it to someone else, and then that person will call their clients and call their people, and there's a huge return on that. So just keep that in mind, that having a database and having having the size of your database really and understanding the importance of that, and being able to understanding the importance of the quality of your database and the organizational of it. That's the word I was looking for. Is just really having it organized, having it, having different tags, having different subsets of people. That's going to be the important thing. Now, on page 143, they say that you should really categorize people. Obviously, if you met someone at an open house, you can have an open house tag. There's a lot of different things that you can tag people as, but they do say you should generate definitely two groups of people that you've met and people that you haven't met. So people that you've met, you're going to then put into what's called an 8x8 campaign. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I'll come back to that in 1 second. But the 8x8 campaign is where you're going to have a campaign set up where someone's connecting with you, or you're connecting with someone every week for 8 weeks. So it's really building that mind share, building that relationship. And then they go into what's called a 33 touch campaign. The 33 touch campaign is 33 touches throughout the course of the year. So that could be a neighborhood update, it could be a happy birthday, it could be a phone call, it could be a lot of different things. It could be mailing them something, a market update. All that's included in the 33 touch. So it goes from an 8x8 to a 33 touch for people you have met, and people that you haven't met, you're going to put them on a 12 direct, which is just a mailer essentially every single month for the entire year. So those are people that you haven't met, but you'll get that return because you're saturating the market. Because again, if you're only doing something once or twice, you're not going to earn the mind share. But if you put something out there every month for 12 months, people are going to start to, even if they throw something away, they're going to say, wait, I know that there's a realtor sending something out, and it does earn that mind share. So you just have to consistently do it and consistently stick with it. Last but not least, and this is where we come back into the 8x8, the 33 touch, and the 12 direct, you have to systematically market to your database. So first and foremost, as we talked about, 8x8, the second you meet someone, so if you meet someone in an open house, you're going to put them on an 8x8 campaign. So you're going to offer them something of value. You're going to follow up with them, make sure they received it, have a conversation about it. It's just constant saturation and really getting in front of them. So the foundational idea is no less than 8 touches over 8 weeks. So it's got to be 8 touches, 8 weeks. That'll start to build that relationship. Then you'll put them on your 33 touch campaign, which, like I said, it can be a combination of emails, mailings, letters, neighborhood updates, real estate news, all this stuff. And we're gonna, it could be Happy Thanksgiving, it could be Happy New Year, all different types of things. And then last but not least, we've got the 12 direct campaigns, which are for people that you haven't met. So I know we just talked about this a little bit, but what I want to do now is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go into command. And what I want to do is, hopefully you guys can see my screen, but I'm going to sign in first and foremost. What I want to do is I want to have Christina real quick just talk to us about where you can find, because we have smart plans and drip campaigns already pre-made for our office that you can go right in and utilize. Also, just real quick, when you log in, there's always designs on the section over here. So there is something for Father's Day this week. You've got something for Pride, for Juneteenth. There's a lot of different things over here that you can incorporate and post as well. So that could be a touch. But Christina, where would we go if we wanted to look for some of our smart plans?
Okay, so over on the left-hand side, they look like little icons, but they're actually called applets. So if we click on the KW in the top left-hand corner, it brings out the applets and their names. So like Matt had said, in the MREA, they're referred to as drip campaigns, but in Command, they're called smart plans. So it's the fourth one down. And if you haven't logged into Command, or if you haven't downloaded any smart plans to your library yet, your screen will look something along the lines of where it says no smart plans. So in order to download them, similar to like the App Store, in order to actually use the smart plans, you have to download them from the library. So we're currently in the My Smart Plans tab, and we're going to go to the library. And Command actually has a couple different tabs. So it starts with the featured smart plans, meaning that these are the most recently featured smart plans that they think that you guys should then download to your database. If you wanted to see all, there is a button that you can click. You can actually view them by category. So if you keep scrolling down, well, there's actually most used, top rated, featured, what's new. But Keller Williams has also created 10 for you. So KWRI has already gone and created 10, so you can download them to your library at any time. There's about 750 top rated smart plans that agents, admins, staff, whoever works for Keller Williams across the country has gone ahead and created and then published to the library so that you are then able to use it as your own. All you would need to do is edit them. And essentially under each smart plan name, it will give you the goal of what the smart plan is trying to accomplish. So what Matt was saying before with the 8x8, this is for new contact engagement, and it will help you build relationships and win the real estate mindshare battle. So if you wanted to go ahead and add the smart plan, we'll click that button down below. It's going to say that it's a combined smart plan or it's bundled. So when you download the 8x8, it will also make you download the My Monthly Neighborhood Nurture smart plan, which if you haven't already downloaded, it will make you go ahead and download that as well.
Mhm.
And then we'll go ahead and click download. Matt already has it under his smart plan, so he's unable to download the actual smart plan to his library.
Mhm.
But being that neither of you guys have downloaded it yet, you will be then able to download it, and then you're able to start setting contacts up on this drip campaign.
Awesome. Perfect. So for those of you, so like we were just talking about the 8x8, the 33 touch and the 12 direct, this whole portal in here in Command, there's a lot of different options for you to be able to plug into. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. It looks like, Jane, did I see you come on?
I did. I'm here. How are you?
Good. How's it going?
It's good. I'm sorry I'm running late. We just finished our meeting in Sparta.
Yep.
I hear you're talking about some of my favorite things, the 8x8, 3 touch and 12 direct.
Yeah.
Marketing based and prospecting enhanced. Love
Yep.
it. Love it.
Yep.
Love it.
Yeah, we just got through some of that. We're now on page 149, Jane, where we're talking. So we just got through, like I said, we got through all the drip campaigns, ultimately, the different ways that people can sort by people you've met versus people you haven't met. So we just got through that section. And really right now on page 149 and 150, one thing that Gary really stresses, and Jane and I have kind of talked about this now for the last few weeks, is the importance on focusing on seller listings. Because ultimately, for each properly marketed seller listing, you should yield one buyer in return. So, as Gary writes on page 150, if you wanted to have 50 sales in 1 year, you'd really need a lead generation plan that delivered 25 saleable and marketable seller listings, and then effectively market them. Because 25 successfully marketed listings would then yield 25 buyers from that. So, Jane, if you're in a spot where you could talk, do you want to talk? Since I feel like my voice is probably it's probably grating on some people, but what would you when we're talking about I'm looking at page 151, the 14-step marketing plan for listings. Do you want to talk a little bit about a few of them?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, when you look at this chart, you need to remember that this book was written quite some time ago. All right, so the material is somewhat dated. They talk about fax distribution and other things in this marketing plan. But what you have to remember when we're talking about our lead gen model and we're talking about focusing on listings first so that buyers will come from those listings is that your marketing plan, it needs to do two things. It needs to market the listing to get the listing sold, right? We know that's important, but also it needs to be marketing to buyers out there for visibility for yourself. So when you look at some of the things that are in this list that they have dated or not, what they're talking about is a combination of things to sell the property and to attract attention both to the property and to the agent. And you have to keep that in mind. When Gary is talking about marketing based and prospecting,
Enhanced.
oh my God, I just lost the word, enhanced,
Yeah.
you have to think about that all along. And when we're planning our business coaching that we're doing for you, we're very, very focused on the prospecting side because that generates enough money for you to do the marketing side. And when you're listening to a seller, the seller wants to know the marketing side because that's what he perceives is going to help sell his house. So you have to focus on that. And the bottom line is, once you get in front of that seller, what you're dealing with, if you look in the bottom of 151, is that you've done a good job with your marketing to get in front of that seller. But now it's up to you. And what is it up to you to do? It's up to you to know your scripts, to know your dialogues, and to know your objections. Because then what you're dealing with is your conversion rates. So you can have, and I think it's on the next page that it discusses this, that you can have massive number of leads and low conversion rates and be successful, or you can have a lower number of leads and high conversion rates and be just as successful, right? Or imagine if you had huge number of leads and really good conversion rates, where you would be in the end. So you really need to take that to heart when you look at the bottom of that page and the next page, that you need to be prepared for every listing appointment that you're going on to convert it. Because not only is that listing a listing, in theory, it's also at least a buyer. And you need to remember that. You have to be on top of that in order for it to move forward. So let's turn now to page 185, our marketing-based prospecting enhanced content. So what we're assuming you're good with me moving on. Matt, are you good with me moving on?
I'm good with that. I think the one thing, and just to echo what you said, we talked a little bit before about 76% of all sellers will only interview one agent. So the thing is,
Right.
as you were talking about, it's just getting in front of the seller and understanding what the objections, understanding your scripts and dialogues. So definitely, Eric and Joe down in the coaching wing, they're really good with the scripts and dialogues. So definitely plug into some of their training, because that's where you're just going to absorb that information.
Right, and I do want to say something about that, the seller only most talking to one, maybe two. That's where two things come into play here. And the National Association of Realtors has two statistics that you should keep in mind that are a little bit more updated than this book. The first one is that if you don't touch your customers and clients from a prospecting perspective, every 35 to 40 days, they forget you. Right? So you need to make sure that you are in front of them every 30 to 45 days, or else you're just not in the top of their mind. You don't have that mind space from them, so they're not going to remember to call you, right? And then the second thing is exactly what Matt is saying is, and they talk about it here in the book, about how I think they use potato chips as the sample in this book, that you can name maybe 7 different types of potato chips. But there's a limited mind space that people have. And if I asked you today if you could name a dentist, most can name one. If I asked you if you can name two, some can name two, myself being one of them, because we did the whole orthodonture situation. So I can name 2 dentists, but most people can't name 3. So you need to make sure that you're number 1 in people's mind, worst case, number 2 in people's mind. And you need to do that in various ways through your prospecting and through your marketing to people. And that's where we get to our marketing based versus prospecting enhanced when we're talking about a true millionaire real estate agent. Because remember, the math in this book, I'm on page 186, 187. Remember, the math in this book when they're dealing with the millionaire real estate agent is based on a $250,000 sales price, right, which is not necessarily accurate in our market, but also a 3% sales commission, which is also not necessarily accurate. It's a little high for our market. But when you look at these big numbers that they're talking about, which are 100% reachable. There's no doubt in my mind that they're 100% reachable, but you need to add a leverage point, because as much as I love our prospecting program and our nurturing program and teaching the agency 8x8 to 33 touch, that is limited in capacity, because you as one person or as a team may be 5 people. So as a team, it's exponentially bigger, 5 times bigger, but you still have limited time in the day where you can get those prospecting activities done. So there is a cap on the number of people that you can contact 33 times a year. There's just a cap because you physically can't do it. So if you look at yourself as a marketing based person, but prospecting enhanced, marketing allows you to leverage some of that work out to reach other people in other ways. So our 12 Direct program is the very, very first step to being marketing based and prospecting leveraged. So you're reaching out to a farm of people 12 times a year with a piece. And it's interesting that they do talk about it in here about, you know, you can get all creative and all your content and all of that, but it's more important that you do it. And they talk about doing it in January and being done with it for the year and having it set and go. This is what we're teaching you practically verbatim. I almost don't care what it says as long as it's relative to real estate. And when you take your prospecting portion of your business and you grow it enough that you have some income, and we use our economic model where we're setting it money aside, and we'll talk about the budget model next time. You're setting some of that money aside. Well, now you're taking that money and you're putting it into a marketing-based business. So when you do a marketing-based business, you can expect a 50 to 1 return on your money versus your prospecting is a 12 to 2.
Yep.
So for every 12 people you have in your database that you're actively prospecting through with your 8x8 and then 33 touch, you should expect two deals out of, or 2 listings or 2 buyers. But here's the thing, it's 12 to 2 with anybody who's got a half a brain in math is going to say, why don't you say 6 to 1? They say 12 to 2 for prospecting because they expect 1 referral client from your database and 1 of your actual database people to make a move. So you should expect 2 different types of leads from that. But with your marketing base, it's 12 to 2. With marketing, you have to hit 50 to get 1 contact or 1 deal out of it, right? So the numbers, the percentages are very, very different, marketing based versus prospecting based. But the leverage point of marketing is that you can spend a lot less time and hit a lot more people. But here's the rub on that. You're hitting a lot more people with a lot less time, but it's going to cost you more money. So your return on investment is different. So if you look at the bottom of page 187, there's a number of charts here, but the bottom of 187, it's talking about the number of people that you need to have to hit their mathematical goal of 320 sales based on the 250 and the 3% to be a millionaire real estate agent, right? In haven't met, if you have nobody that you're prospecting to, and you're just marketing based, you're talking about 16,000 contacts that you need to have in your database. That's a very expensive model to be using in order to get your 320 transaction. So you need to be balanced somewhere in between where they say 960 people that you're prospecting to and that you're using your personal time and personal touch, etc., and about 8,000 people in your database for your marketing-based business. So as we grow and we move more towards a marketing-based, we're only going to do that when our prospecting is up and running, right? And then we move more towards a marketing-based, then we can exponentially expand the number of people that we're hitting. What do you think about that, Matt?
Yes, absolutely. I was just telling Christine, I think we're good with her section, so I didn't want her sitting next to me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm sorry.
No, you're totally good. I think that's right on point. And I think the important thing to know is, and the cool thing with the Millionaire Real Estate Agent is the parts that we were talking about in the first half of this section is really for all agents, like new agents, people who have been in the business for however long. But when we're looking at the section that Jane started talking about on page 185, 186, 187, really through this whole portion, it's the lead gen model for a millionaire real estate agent.
Right.
So that's if you want to net $1 million, what do the numbers need to look like in order to do that? And as we look at page like 189, we don't necessarily need to go into, because for some people you may not have that graph in front of you, but when we talk about the budget model next week, we're going to show, or not next week because we're off next week, but 2 weeks from now, we're going to show you what your breakdown should look like on your P&L and different things. So that way, what you're allocating towards marketing, what you're allocating towards different things in your business. So, this section, I mean, if you want to talk a little about it, Jane, on 189, but that's really what it looks like from, when you're adding, whether it's 12 people to your database, whether how many people it is a day, that's what the breakdown is of the cost per lead, essentially.
Right. And when you look at that chart, first of all, two things that struck me when I was rereading it last night is it's 20 years old, and look at those dollars that are in there, right? So even if we look at the worst case scenario as being closer to what it's going to cost you today, it's still a boatload of money. And here's what I want you to take away from any of this, especially if you're a relatively new in the last 3-5 years or less than that agent, single agent. Yeah. I don't want you looking at these numbers and being frightened and saying, holy hell, how am I going to do that? Right? Like, that's not where I'm coming from. And I believe that's not where Matt's coming from.
No, exactly.
And it's exactly why Matt and I are so focused on the prospecting side of the business, because the prospecting side versus the marketing side, the prospecting side gives you a much higher return on your investment of your time, really mainly your time, a little bit of money, right? So that when you have that down and when you're really seeing a return on your investment for your prospecting, and it's really turning out 3-4 contacts a month or that really want to buy a house, and you see yourself getting to a tipping point of leveraging, being able to have that income to leverage out to the marketing based portion of it, you could decide, hey, hell, I'm going to be a millionaire real estate agent. I'm going to send out 16,000 pieces a month. More power to you. But it's a scaling process. It's not going to happen overnight. So we want you to see the big goal, because the big goal is such a beautiful thing. But we want you to understand that to get to that big goal, you have to do those little steps, and the big goal will pull you through. So don't get tied up on the money here in this particular scenario, because we are going to talk about the budget model and talk about where you are today and how your prospecting is going to put money in your budget so that you can leverage yourself for the marketing based side and have it prospecting enhanced.
Yeah, and I think just, again, it comes back to, and we talked about this before, organizing your database. If you don't have people in command, add people to command, tag them, and make sure that you're tracking your numbers, because that's another huge piece of, especially at page 189, 190, a big part of this is tracking, okay, if you're sending mailers out every month for 12 months to your haven't met, maybe you're targeting a specific neighborhood, what return are you getting on that? Like, who did you, make sure you're tracking where you're getting your business from, repeat referral, a lot of different things, because that's how you're going to then year after year be able to allocate and say, okay, and I know Gordon Crawford, who I used to work with in Morristown, he was in the business for 30, 40 years now. He knew that about 35 to 40% of his business every year, and it might even be closer to 50%, was going to be repeat and referral business. So he knew that in order to hit his goals, that 50% was going to be repeat referral, the other 50% was going to have to be new business, and it was going to be prospecting and different things. But if you're tracking your numbers, you'll know that. So when you go to the end of the year, you'll be able to say, okay, going into 2022, this is what I'm going to need to do in all facets of my lead gen.
Exactly. And the other thing that's important that you're going to know is the flip side of that. If you know that you're sending out all these mailings and you're not getting any leads or returns from it, it's important to know that, right? The other thing is, if you're doing tons of prospecting and you are so on your game and making all those outreaches to all these customers and clients, and you're not seeing a return on it, what it's telling you is you need to work on your scripts and dialogues, and
Yeah.
you need to work on what you're doing so that you know you're getting a return on investment in what it is that you've chosen to do. And then you're saying, hey, I've got 50% of my business repeat and referral. I should really focus, and maybe I can get that to 60% of my business. And you know what? I really prefer working with them anyway. So let me focus my time there, as opposed to, hey, I'm getting 40% of my people from my farm. Really? Well, maybe we need to treat your farm even better, and you'll get 50% of people from your farm.
Correct.
Right?
If
So
you're not
you
tracking your
have to
numbers, you
track
would know
it.
that. Exactly. And if you're tracking your numbers, you'll know that, because yeah, if you know you're getting that, then you should allocate more resources and more time into that area, because you could get more than
Correct.
you're even getting.
Correct. And that's going to drive your budget for when we talk about our budget model. That's going to drive where we're taking those monies and where we're going to best build our business from that, so that someday we can be talking about 320 transactions and 16,000 pieces of mail each month. You know,
Yep.
that's a totally different world, but where we all want to go. We have to have big goals, peeps. Big goals.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is a good spot to maybe close up today.
Yep.
Just a reminder, next week we're skipping because Jane and we have a leadership retreat, but then we'll be back at it. I believe it's July 2nd, maybe 2 Thursdays from now. Whatever 2 Thursdays from now is, we will be tackling the budget model, and we will go from there. So I appreciate those who tuned in, and I'll post this to Facebook as well. Thanks, Jane.
Great. Sorry I was late, everybody, but talk to you soon.
You're good. Bye, Jane.